Hello guys, welcome back to this channel. This is Ambi Cosby tutorial channel, and in today's video we are going to solve two likely examinable questions on change of subject. Now when we talk of change of subject, we want to basically consider a mathematical relation where you have one variable standing alone. Now we want to rearrange the variables in the relation such that we are going to have a different variable to stand alone. Now this is what we call changing the subject. Now let's consider the relation. Let's say y equals mx plus c. Now from this relation, the variable y, which stands alone, is the subject of the relation. Now we can rearrange the variable such that we will make c the subject. So let's assume that we want to make c the subject. Then we basically transpose mx to the left hand side so that we have y minus mx equals c. Now when this happens, it means that we've been able to make c the subject. So basically when we talk about change of subject, we have one variable standing alone, and this time we want to rearrange the variables in the relation such that a different variable will stand alone so that that will be the subject of that equation. So having this in mind, let's solve two questions which are likely to appear in our examination. So for the first question, we have the time t in seconds for a complete oscillation of a simple pendulum of length L in meters is given by the relation t equals 2 pi multiplying the square root of L over J, where we have the acceleration due to gravity in meter per second squared. Now for A, we are going to make L the subject of this relation, and then B, if t is equal to 1 second, and then we have J, that is the acceleration due to gravity, to be 9.8 meter per second squared, then we are going to find the length of the pendulum, given that we have the value of pi to be 3.142. Now to solve this question, we have the relation t equals 2 pi multiplying the square root of L over J, and then for A, we are going to make L the subject. So without wasting much time, let's make L the subject. So according to the question, we have the relation t equals 2 pi multiplying the square root of L over J. Now we are going to make L the subject. Now to make L the subject, the first step is to square both sides so that we eliminate the square root. So we are going to square both sides of the equation. So we have t squared equals 2 pi multiplying the square root of L over J all squared. Now we have t squared equals, now the square affects 2 pi and then the square root of L over J. So we have 2 pi all squared multiplying, we have the square root of L over J all squared. Now 2 pi squared is 4 pi squared, so we have 4 pi squared, and then the square cancels the square root, so we have L over J. Now let's cross multiply. So when we cross multiply, we have J_t squared equals 4 pi squared times L. Now since we are interested in finding L, let's divide through by 4 pi squared. Now 4 pi squared cancels out 4 pi squared, and then we have L equals gt squared over 4 pi squared. So this is the expression for L. Now for the B part, we are going to substitute the values, given t is 1 second, and then J, that is 9.8 meter per second squared, and then we have pi to be 3.142. So we are going to substitute these values into the equation L equals gt squared over 4 pi squared so that we find the value of L. So let's rewrite the equation. So we had L equals gt squared divided by 4 pi squared. Now we have j to be 9.8, so we have 9.8, and then we have t to be 1, so we have 1 squared divided by 4 pi squared. Now pi is 3.142, so we have 3.142 squared. Now if you punch this on your calculator, you should get something around 0.248 meters. So this is the value of L, given that we have t to be 1 second, j to be 9.8 meter per second squared, and then we have pi to be 3.142. Now let's solve the second question. So for the second question, we are going to make d the subject of the relation d minus f all exponent 1 over 2 over d plus f all exponent 1 over 2 equals 3 kg over m. Now according to indices, if you have a variable, say a, exponent 1 over 2, then this is the same as having the square root of that variable. And then if you have the square root of a variable, say a, divided by the square root of another variable, say b, then this is the same as having the square root of a over b. So these two principles are going to help us in our solution. So let's rewrite the question. So we have d minus f exponent 1 over 2 divided by d plus f exponent 1 over 2 equals 3 kg divided by m. Now we are going to apply the first property. So since we have d minus f exponent 1 over 2 and then d plus f exponent 1 over 2, we are going to replace them with the square root. So we have the square root of d minus f divided by the square root of d plus f, and that's equal to 3 kg divided by m. Now let's simplify this so that we have the bigger square root. So we have the bigger square root where we have d minus f divided by d plus f equals 3 kg divided by m. Now because we want to eliminate the square root, we are going to square both sides of the equation. So the square cancels the square root, and then we have d minus f divided by d plus f equals, we have 9k squared g squared divided by m squared. So next we are going to cross multiply. So we are going to have m squared multiplying d minus f, and then we have equal to 9k squared j squared multiplying d plus f. That is for this. Now let's multiply across. So we have m squared times d, so that is m squared d, and then we also have m squared times f, so we have m squared f equals, we have 9k squared j squared times d plus 9k squared g squared times f. Now since we want to make d the subject, let's group the terms having d on one side and then the other variables on the other side. Now we have m squared d, so let's transpose 9k squared g squared d to the left hand side. So we have m squared d minus 9k squared g squared d equals, we have 9k squared g squared f plus m squared f. We are going to transpose negative m squared f to the right hand side. Now we can factor out d. So we have d into bracket m squared minus 9k squared g squared, and that is equal to, and then we can as well factor out f. So we have f into bracket 9k squared g squared plus m squared. Now because we want to make d the subject, let's divide through by m squared minus 9k squared g squared. So we have d to be equal to f into bracket 9k squared g squared plus m squared divided by m squared minus 9k squared g squared. So that's it for today's video. Thanks for watching. Do well to like, subscribe and comment below. Don't forget to also share to your friends so that they can also benefit from this video. Bye bye.